welcome to another beautiful episode of We Read It One Night, the podcast where two sisters lead you on the romance revolution. Today we're chatting about Brooklynaire by Sarina Bowen, a hockey team adjacent romance with just enough hockey terminology to lose us, and a sweet, secretly pining couple of dummies. Nate, the titular tech billionaire, and Becca, his absurdly clumsy friend/assistant/hockey team office manager. Yeah, that's all of your titles. We also announced something pretty exciting. We have merch! T-shirts, stickers, mugs. Check out the link in the description of this episode or in the bio of any of our socials. Or just search We Read It Podcast on Redbubble. We can't wait to see you showing off your new style. Enjoy the show!
So last weekend, we had cause to end up at the Tennessee Renaissance Festival. It's actually, I don't know why it's the festival, not the fair. It definitely should be like fair, like fairy, whatever. We're at the Tennessee Renaissance Fair, which I personally have been scheming to get us to go to for over a year, ever since I found out it existed, because it is set at a castle. Yes, you heard that right. A castle in Arrington, Tennessee. And it's also where the Love Story by Taylor Swift music video was filmed. So you can go there. Unfortunately, inside the castle is not open for tours because of COVID.
Also because it's a guy's personal home.
Yeah, he lives there. It's been his lifelong dream. He gives you an intro welcome speech.
He did tease us with the presence of his dogs, and then we didn't get to see his dogs, which was upsetting.
But we saw their kennels. But yeah, he also started the Renaissance Fair, but this year was the first year that he gave ownership over to the county, and frankly, I feel like it was much less efficiently run because they're still probably they're first of all getting their bearings and whatnot. But
you've never been there, also
I haven't.
You don't know what it was
imagine.
when it used to be around his castle, and then it got too big, so they moved it into the field next door.
No, it was the state built the state built an interstate. That's how he phrased it. And it was called an interstate on the map, but this interstate, people, was a 2-lane. It's generous to even call it a 2-lane road. It's a 1.5-lane road through a field where I guarantee if it weren't for this Renaissance Fair, the rest of the year, not a single car goes by, I bet. So you pointed out, we were maybe a little harsh on Stephanie Meyer for calling the road through Forks, Washington, a highway, because if this counts as a highway,
it counts as an interstate, which
anything
I feel
can be a highway.
I feel like an interstate is highway plus.
Well, interstate just means it goes through more than one state.
Oh, yeah. See, I thought weren't interstates, they were instituted by Eisenhower, right? And part of the purpose of them was the ability for the US to move troops more easily / land airplanes on highways.
Yeah, maybe that's just some the interstate highway system, but
I don't know. All I'm saying is you could not land an airplane on that road. No way, Jose.
No.
Definitely
no.
not.
Maybe the surrounding fields, but it probably wouldn't do too well.
No.
It's gonna land it. I don't know if you could take it off again. Yeah. But yeah, it was very enjoyable, and I recommend it. We got sunburn watching a falconer. Mediocre falconer.
But the Falcons, I think the Falcons were just tired because it was the last show of the day. It was really sad. He spent 10 minutes trying to get there. I think it was a hawk, wasn't it?
I'm not sure. Yeah.
The first one was a falcon. The second one was a hawk. And he spent 10 minutes trying to get this hawk to land on his arm. And the hawk was just not having it. She was just I do not care how many treats you offer me. I'm done for the day. Yeah. I'm out. Yeah. It was very uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah, I know. It's the worst.
Felt very bad for him.
Yeah.
But also very proud of the hawk. I was good for you.
Standing up for yourself.
Yeah. She was great.
Woman up.
Oh my God. The phrase woman up. God. Speaking of women and people with uteruses, Roe v. Wade may be overturned. Woohoo. Harry Blay. That's not something to woohoo about. I'm gonna find abortion funds that you can donate to, and I'm gonna put them in the description of this video. In case it wasn't clear, this is a pro-abortion podcast. So yeah, that's relevant to this book. Okay, so this book, today we're discussing Brooklynaire by Sarina Bowen.
Sarina Bowen.
What?
Sarina Bowen.
Are you fucking kidding me?
It's not Sabrina, it's Sarina.
I swear to God, I was like, is it Sabrina or Sabina? But now you're telling me it's Sarina.
Mm-hmm. But it's spelled like Sabrina, just with no B. It's not like S-E-R, it's S-A-R.
Interesting. Okay, Sarina Bowen. And the number of times that they mentioned that she was on the pill in this book. Which, like, listen, I want, in contemporaries, I want birth control to be mentioned. Like, but if the heroine's on the pill, or she has an IUD, like, I just want to know once, and then I'm like, okay, fine, we're good. Or like, if they use a condom, I want that to be mentioned every time. But like, the number of times it was mentioned, I was like, okay, so one of the many times that she drinks alcohol with a head injury, she's going to throw up and then she's going to have an accidental pregnancy because like she's going to throw up her pill. I was like, so because it was mentioned so many times, this must be happening. It does not.
Oh, see, no, my thought process was like, do these people not understand that the purpose of birth control is not like just pregnancy? Because like both the times it's mentioned, like it's like they're like midway through like literally having sex and he's like, oh, do you think I should get a condom? She's like, no, I'm on the pill, remember? And I'm like, okay, like that's nice. What about STDs? Like, that's not going to help you with the STD situation. Like, what?
I just assume both of them get regularly tested. Also, it's like canon that like neither of them has had sex for like at least 2 years.
That's not true. He had sex like 4 months ago.
Oh yeah, he did. I forgot about
at
that.
Least.
I forgot about that because it had no bearing on the plot whatsoever.
for like 11 months or something, it said.
But he hasn't had sex like outside of that for a long time.
I don't know. He had like some one-offs. Still though, like just like the way they talk about it is so weird. It's like they don't even, but it's also just like you fundamentally don't understand how that worked. Like that's, I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, there's like just so many like overt Pride and Prejudice references throughout this book.
Oh my God, it's so, but I don't understand because it wasn't enemies to lovers.
Oh yeah, sure. Right. Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
I literally wrote, we King to Cod this shit with the Pride and Prejudice references right off the bat.
It really is.
Like
it starts off. Dude, the first line, I was like, oh my God, I can't handle this. It is a truth universally acknowledged that I am something of a badass. And then she proceeds to like list things that allegedly make her a badass that are like, I'm like, ma'am. She's like, I drink my coffee black. And I'm like, all right, so you hate yourself. Like, glad you're not like other girls, Rebecca. And she's like, I can do 25 push-ups in a set. And I'm like, okay. Like,
yeah, but can you do that, Rachel?
Yes.
Can you do 25 push-ups in a set?
What does that even
like
mean?
Real push-ups?
Like, no, but like, girl, I don't know. Okay.
I'm just saying I can't do 25 push-ups, so like I'm going to give this to Rebecca. I'm going to give the W to Rebecca.
I just feel like the entire thing, I don't know, like I drink my coffee. I live in Brooklyn, so I'm a badass. Like, all right, Rebecca.
The Brooklyn thing, yeah.
Rebecca and I would not be friends.
No, our main characters are Nate and Rebecca / sometimes called Becca. It's like very like, I don't know, like it's not like some people call her Becca and some call her Rebecca. Like they all like sometimes do it anyway. And this is a sports romance and a boss assistant romance. And I don't think we've had that before.
I would say it's like borderline sports romance because neither of them are like sports people. Yeah, sports adjacent. It's boss assistant. So Nate is a billionaire. He's like a tech billionaire with a B. And but like the only part of his job that we really see, actually that's not true, but he's very into the hockey. Like that's like he's like, he allegedly runs a tech company, but like his main job seems to be just like hockey. So he owns this like hockey franchise.
That's
called
what like rich men do. They buy
but are they really that involved with it usually? Like are they just like they own it and then they delegate?
I mean, is he really involved or does he just go to every game?
He gives locker room pep talks.
Yeah, but at the games, you know what I mean? He's not like going to practices or like deciding any, like, you know what I mean? He just goes to the games and he flies his private jet to the games and then flies back to New York. And I'm like, you, not only are you a billionaire, but you are like spreading jet fuel across all of America.
Meanwhile, like his employees can't even afford like doctor's appointments or like get more than 2 weeks off for sick leave. Like,
Basically, listen, let me just preface. This was released in 2016, and I feel like we were still in that, like, billionaire romances were still a thing. Like I would say, like, billionaire romances, it didn't start with 50 Shades of Grey, but it started around 50 Shades. Like, post Great Recession, there was a big trend in, like, millionaire and billionaire romances because, like, that was a fantasy. Everyone wanted to be financially secure. But, like, now in, like, the last few years, we've really sort of, like, started to move away and I'm, like, no longer, like, I even, like, I love historicals, but I'm still like, oh, this duke, like, he's only this rich because, like, a lot of really bad stuff. And I the historical is more like of a fantasy world than, like, contemporary for me. But yeah, contemporaries, I'm like, you're a billionaire, like,
There's just, like, so much you
eat
could
the
be doing.
rich.
Yeah. But so Nate and Rebecca have known each other, like, before he became even, like, a thousandaire or whatever. Like, basically, her dad died, so she had to drop out of college, and she needed a job, like, ASAP. So she, like, she becomes an assistant at Nate's company.
We have another parentified older sibling. She has to take care of her
Right.
mom and her younger sister.
Right. So she's been with him, like, through the whole thing. So she worked in that position as his assistant for, like, 5 years. And then 2 years ago, he randomly switched her job with this girl, Lauren, who was, like, the assistant to the general manager of the Brooklyn Bruisers, the hockey team. He switched them. And Becca has been, like, freaking out about this for the past 2 years. She's like, what did I do wrong? Am I about to lose my job? And therefore, like, you know, my security for my whole family. And she doesn't know why. But she does really like her job as a Brooklyn Bruisers person.
And she's technically the office manager. She's not the assistant. Come on, Rachel.
Okay.
They make a point several times to be like, she's not an assistant, she's the office manager. But yeah, Nate is like, when he does it, he's like, she's like, oh, he said it was like a lateral move. Like, it's not like it was a demotion or anything. Like, he just, like, moved her to a different part.
But it's still weird. So her whole thing is that she's like, oh my gosh, I'm just so practical. Everyone else is an idiot, and I'm the only one with a good head on my shoulders. Like, but a few weeks ago, she did something that would make other heads roll, and she decided to just, like, walk onto the ice. She was like, oh, I've, like, been working here for 2 years, and I've never been on the ice. Like, let me try it, which is not unreasonable. I'd be tempted.
I know, but you couldn't make me get on an ice rink if you held a gun to my head anymore. Like, I'm not going near those. Like, what? I fucking hate ice rinks.
Really? Like, ice skating?
Are you seriously asking me whether I hate ice skating? Are you really asking me this question? I've never been able to ice skate. I cannot. The number of bruises I come away from every time I go ice skating. I told you,
so fun.
The first date I ever went on with my high school boyfriend, we went ice skating, and he had to, like, hold my like both of my hands the whole time and, like, skate backwards. And at one point he got tired of doing that. It was like, why don't you use the cone?
I didn't use the cone. Well, I feel like it's like roller skating, which you used to be really good at.
It's not. It's horrible. Yeah, but I'm not good at roller skating anymore.
I mean, I'm not, like, good at ice skating, but I can, like, you know,
no, I can't stand up. I cannot go more than a foot without falling over ice skating, without, like, someone holding on to me.
Such a fun, like, activity, though. Like, I don't know. It just, like, spices up the weekend.
You would
it's like think. Bowling. Or, like, I don't know.
I do like ice. I mean, I don't like sports in general. And I'm going to say, like, I feel like I enjoyed this book. I feel like I would have enjoyed it a lot more if I knew a single thing about hockey.
No, that's what I was going to say. I don't know a single thing about hockey, but what I was going to say is I like the fact that they call everything, like, game 6, game 7 of the play. It seems like it'd be very easy to keep track of, like, what's going on and, like, the progression.
I agree. I think I would be able to learn the rules of hockey much more easily than I would be able to learn the rules of, like, football.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, in this book, I know nothing about hockey. I do enjoy the movie Miracle, which is about when the US team beat the Russians at the Olympics. It's an excellent movie. And, like, it's one of the few sports movies where I'm like, chef's kiss. But were I to get into one of, like, those big masculine, quote unquote, sports, I feel like I would pick ice hockey.
Yeah. Anyway, she walks onto the ice in her shoes, and then she falls down and smacks her little head on the pavement and gets a concussion.
And I was like, at this point, I was like, a sickbed scene? Do we get a sickbed? No, we don't get a sickbed scene. She's sick for this whole book.
There's a lot of sickbed adjacent scenes. Yeah, exactly. So she has a concussion, and she's, like, freaking out about needing 2 weeks off of work. She's like, oh my God, like, this is so horrible. I'm going to get fired. But also, I just, like, love being at work so much. I can't imagine even 2 weeks off, which just, like, makes me so, and everyone in this book is like that. It just makes me so, like, anxious. Like, whenever I hear, it's just, like, I get that it's America, but like that she'd be anxious about, like, and stressed that like work wouldn't want her to take time off. But she's also like, oh, I just don't want to. Like, I just want to be at work all the time. And I'm like, what
Yeah.
do you like? 2 weeks is not that long. Like,
She does this throughout the book. Even with, like, she's like, "Oh, I don't wanna take Nate's money. I don't want Nate to, like, buy things for it," like, whatever. And, like, this
mm,
is a common thing. Like, I feel like that's, like, such a pervasive trope in, like, billionaire romances where, like, in order to show that she's, like, worthy of him or, like, not like other girls, like, she doesn't want him for his
yeah.
money or whatever, like, she has to be like, "No, you can't buy me anything ever." And I'm like, "Listen, he's a billionaire. Suck him dry. Like, you can still
Oh
like him
yeah.
and let him, like, buy you plane tickets and, like, nice hotel rooms."
This is, like, even independent of her with Nate, though. It's just, like, her wanting to be at work just for the sake of it, and, like, cannot
I
even being
know.
able to imagine, like, 2 weeks of your life not being at work, and I'm just
Well,
like,
she has a
"What?"
fucking
Like,
concussion, like, she can't even look at her phone
yeah.
without feeling like she's gonna
I
vomit.
know. Or her, like, healing process is exacerbated by the fact that currently her sister's boyfriend, and her sister's baby are living at her apartment. And she's just, like, such a bitch about her. She's like, "My sister is, like, kind of an idiot. Like, she's so fucking stupid."
I mean, they do kinda seem kinda dumb.
Yeah, but, like, but I don't kn not with the
Like,
evidence, not any dumber than
ditzy.
Rebecca. And she's like, yeah, her child groom, who's, like, 21, her sister's 22, like, they're not. She's like, he
Yeah.
was gonna go get a job on an oil rig, but then, like, a week later, he was back, and he was like, "I just couldn't stand another day without my family." The 21-year-old fool cried. Like, just, like, roast it. "What do you mean? Yeah, he has a newborn baby." Like, "What?" And then she just, like, goes off on her sister. She's like, "My sister's kind of an idiot, always has been, and yet she snagged a man who truly loves her." And I'm like, "All right, so, like, dumb people don't deserve love?" Like, what?
Like, you're jealous? Like, I don't understand.
She's like,
Yeah,
"Every time I
they're
think about it, I
really
throw up a little." Like, I don't get it. And then she's like, "Yeah, they're all here." And I'm like, "All right, well, you invited them to live there. Like, it's not like they're squatting. Like, you were like, 'Come live
Yeah,
with
but she's
me.'"
also listen, she's been parentified.
Yeah, I
I do have a
know,
little
but
sympathy for Becca because she did have to drop out of college and she did have to like she doesn't make a lot of money, you know? Like she's an office manager. Yeah.
like, why? But you invited them there. Like, don't. I don't know.
Just about the sister and her boyfriend. They're having sex in the room and then they come out and then like the baby starts to cry and like the boyfriend comes out to like, you know, comfort the baby. And the description is they stare at each other like long lost lovers. Like,
What? Are you sure that's
what
not
a
about the sister and the
no,
boyfriend?
I rewound this to make sure that I knew and it's the baby and the dad looking at each other, and I'm like, "That is a weird way to describe a father and son looking at each other," like, especially, like, literally a paragraph after you have talked about the father having sex, like, with his girlfriend, you know, like also,
Yeah.
is the boyfriend's name Remy, or was I
I
mishearing
thought it
that?
was Rennie, like, with an
Either way,
N.
I was picking Remy, and I was just picturing, like, Remy the
The
Rat from
rat.
Ratatouille the whole
Very similar
time.
vibes. Very similar vibes. So okay, so they're, like, having their nice little family moment. The sister's, like, nursing. Who knocks on the door but Nate the Great with a huge bouquet of flowers for Becca. And Rebecca's first instinct is to be like, "Oh my God, like, you can't come up." And I get it, like, you don't want your house to be messy for guests. But she's like, "Oh my God, like, my sister's basically topless. Like, how embarrassing." And I'm like, "Oh, your sister's fucking breastfeeding in her own home.
Yeah.
Like, she lives here and she has a baby. Like, what do you want her to do?" And, like, she's like, "Oh, I wish Rennie would at least, like, put a shirt on, like, blah, blah," which, okay, I get that. But also, like, this is also his house. And then Nate comes in and, like, they have this whole, like, exchange and she manages to, like, kick the sister and boyfriend, like, out of the house. But not before. The boyfriend's, like, talking about getting a book from the library. And he's like, "Yeah, like, I want to get the sequel. This book was so good. It's about, like, parallel universes, like, how there could be a parallel universe where, like, you're the queen of France, Rebecca." And Rebecca's like, "There's not a monarchy in France." And he's like, "Yeah, like, that's the point. It's a fucking parallel universe, Rebecca. Like, who's the dumb one now?"
She's very, like, weirdly judgmental about
Yeah,
his,
she's
like,
so judgmental
parallel fantasy books, and
about
I don't understand.
everyone. Yeah.
Honestly, it didn't really bother me in the
Yeah, I don't
book.
know.
I know, like, we're talking about it now as if it really bothered me, but, like, I didn't really care that
It
much.
bothered me more the
I
second
didn't
time that
think
I
like,
read
she
it.
wasn't an unlikable heroine to me. She was a little, like, too stupid to live. She was a little too stupid to
But
live.
think she's so
Because
smart.
of the but, like, the number of times she drinks alcohol with her head injury. I'm just like, "You have a concussion."
No, it's not. It's worse than concussion, we're about to find out.
I know.
So he comes in, they're like chatting. They have like their little inside jokes, like listen bitch from like a movie they watched on a plane, like whatever. And we also get these like this is where we find out how they first met. Like we have these like random interspersed flashbacks that are written in
That
like
are
this weird like
fairy tale
this third person. They're like the fair maiden Rebecca comes in, but like only in the beginning. Like they're not really fairy tale themes. It's just like randomly thrown in, just like the Pride and Prejudice shit.
Yeah.
And like so we find out that another thing they like share in common is palindromes. So that was like Nate's thing. He like loves palindromes. I do love a good palindrome.
But like, how do you come up with them on the fly like this? Like, they seem to just be able to come up with palindromes on the fly, and I feel like that's really impressive.
It is, yeah. Well, yeah, I feel like if I spend a few minutes, I can come up with something like halfway decent, but not really like situationally like relevant, you know.
Yeah.
It is fun. And then Rebecca like gets into that too. And that's what they like, you know, bond over.
Yeah. And in the past, he had a fiance named Juliet, who you find out later like cheated on him with her fitness instructor, who she's now married to and who is also a hockey player, which is random. I also just want to note in the flashback we get that Nate, despite Rebecca being the 8th employee ever in this tech startup, Nathan does not give her stock options.
Yes! Oh my God, that bothered me so much.
You little bitch.
It's like they're like talking about it, and Stu, like Nate's other like friend / employee, is like stock options. Nate's nose wrinkles in reply. Nah, not for clerical staff. Like what? What? That's fucking rude.
She's literally like, your business would not have survived without Rebecca. Like, it's very well established that if Rebecca didn't come in and start managing that office, like they would not. The company would have died, like most other startups in its first year. So like, what the fuck, Nathan? And he doesn't even give them to her later.
Yeah.
Like when she proves instrumental.
No.
She could be a billionaire by now. She could afford health insurance.
Right. I know. Yeah. He's definitely still paying her like $40K or something, like ridiculous.
Yeah.
We also find out that Nate like doesn't pay attention when people talk, which is like played off as like, oh, he's just like so smart, like blah, blah, blah. But like, that's just fucking rude. Like,
I think Nate, I got very strong vibes that Nate was meant to be like on the autism spectrum or something like that.
See, no,
his characterization.
Yeah, like a few times he would say like, "Oh, I'm bad at picking up social cues," but there was nothing at all to like indicate that was true. I'm not
saying it was good autistic representation. I'm just saying I think it was really before like autistic heroes were like a thing. Like, you know what I mean? We're like, I mean, maybe. You know, we had Ian McKenzie before this, but I'm just saying like I think like the whole like genius, like definitely like undertone is this guy is neurodivergent, but I'm not going to say it because neurodivergence isn't sexy, like era of romance. Like that was this.
Yeah, I guess he just came off as such a bro who just like didn't care and like I don't know, like who just wanted.
Yeah, at least Ian McKenzie could like recite what you said a week later.
Right. And like, well, and Ian actually did have trouble understanding social cues. I feel like Nate is just uses that as like an excuse to be really like it's we get from his POV like he knows what's going on. He just like chooses to not like give people respect. I don't know. Whatever. It's not I'm overstating it. He didn't bother me that much. I just when I think about it. So also he's like, oh yeah, like we all work 40 hours on site, but not the same 40 hours. It's flexible. And I'm like, all right, well then why are you making your employees come in? I get that it's 2016. Also, we later find out that he's like making his employees like fly at 3 a.m. and pick him up at 3 a.m. like for no reason. So what that really means is that he just like owns his employees' personal time, like 100%. Bullshit. Whatever. So back to the modern day, Nate's giving an inspirational speech to the hockey team.
It's so lame.
Why not me? Why not now? If not now, then when?
Listen, and like we just finished watching Ted Lasso, and I think just like I'm gonna compare every like speech to Ted Lasso from now on, and just like Ted Lasso is so wonderful. Like the show, like the writing is just like flawless. So like nobody can measure up. It's not fair to compare it to Ted Lasso.
Speeches are just like recycled.
Yeah, they're all funny.
From, like,
they're all like
movies.
funny. Like yeah.
I didn't think the speech was that bad. I don't know. I've been very like.
I just thought it was like I was like I don't know why we need this. Like I feel like you could just be like I gave a pump up speech to the team and then I walked out
because it comes back later. Lauren throws it back at him later on.
What?
She does. Yeah, she's about to. I'll tell you when it comes up. So. Aforementioned Lauren is like with Nate. She's his new assistant. She flipped with Rebecca. It's like really obvious that like Lauren / like half the people at this company, K-Tech, are like know that Nate is in love with Rebecca and like have known for a really long time, and they're just like constantly
and
like roasting
ship
about
it
it. Yep.
full time.
Yep.
And like full
100%.
time or yeah. I'm really glad that Lauren, like, because when we were first, like, we got the description of her from Rebecca, like, I got the impression that she was like gonna be a bitch because like she's described as like,
Yeah,
you
Rebecca
know,
like
like
hates
typical
Lauren.
like Manhattan, like she like dresses, you know, nicely and she's like blonde and like, you know, like the typical
Yeah.
mid 2010s era description of like the bitchy girl. And I was like, why is it always Lauren? Like, why does Lauren always have to be
Oh yeah, I
the
didn't think of
mean,
that.
like random, like generic mean girl? But Lauren is in this book isn't like, I like her. And Becca eventually comes to like her.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. This is just it's just yet another example of like Rebecca like judging people and then realizing she was wrong, which does actually give more credence to the Pride and Prejudice tie-in. Like that's totally Rebecca's MO, is like just off the bat like judging people and thinking that they're like shit and then like being proven wrong, you know?
I do also get in the Lauren situation. I'm like, I want to give a little bit more leeway just because like Lauren did replace her in a very like
Sure.
abrupt, like sudden. So I can understand like developing and like a animosity to someone, like even if they've never really done anything wrong.
Sure. I'm just saying like she has to get past this. I was just saying it's, you know, at least tangentially connected to Pride and Prejudice, like whatever.
First impressions.
Yeah, Lauren is like trying to talk to Nate and like even more than usual, he's like not paying attention. And she's like, "Oh, Rebecca has her like doctor's appointment today, doesn't she?" And Nate's like, "What? No, I totally wasn't just like looking for Rebecca down the hallway, like totally following her into the doctor's office." So she's at the team doctor.
Yeah, the team doctor refers her. He's like, "I don't know what the fuck is going on. The concussion should have been done by now. You got to go to this specialist." And she's like, "Oh, I can't get an appointment until June." And feral Nate in the background is like, "I don't think so. Time to donate $50,000 to concussion research to get her an appointment this Saturday." And once again, I'm like, Becca, the moment he did this, the moment he spent $50,000 to get you a doctor's appointment, that is the moment that you should have lost all concern for spending his money. This man throws out $50,000 like it means nothing. And you know what? $50,000 is pocket change. He is a billionaire. He would literally never be able to spend all that money. Never, ever, ever.
Nope.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Like suck him dry. Take every gift. I don't understand. It's nothing to them. It's like me buying you like an ice cream once a week. Like proportionally. That's what that is to him.
If even.
Like
if yeah. Right. 100%. So he does that. And then he like gives her a ride. Or he's like, "Let me give you a ride home." But instead of taking her home, he takes her to his house. He's like, "You're going to live here for a week." Because she's like owned up to like not being able to sleep because of her like sister and the, you know, newborn baby that's like crying in the apartment.
Yeah. That's fair enough.
Yeah.
But also she's like, "Oh, like I need to be at work." He's like, "Why are you like coming back to work when like you're still sick?" Like she's suffering from vertigo. Like it's definitely more than concussion.
Right.
And she's like, "Well, there's a limit. Like I've already used up all my sick days. There's a limit to sick days in the employee handbook." And he's like, "I will rewrite the employee handbook.
Yeah.
You do
not
not worry.
Good. Like give everyone more sick days.
Give them unlimited sick days."
He also, there's just like a few nice moments. He's like, "Both my hands flex because I have the urge to reach out and pull her into my arms." Just like nice. When she like almost falls over for like the third time.
She's
so they
constantly almost falling over. At least she has a head injury. Like it's not just like, "I'm clumsy TM."
Right.
Like she legitimately has like vertigo.
Yeah.
There's a problem. We roll up to the house. He has a fucking British housekeeper. He has a British housekeeper in his Brooklyn brownstone. And I'm like, I guess that's the Pride and Prejudice thing.
Yeah, I guess. Oh, and like 50 Shades of Grey. Like I thought that her name's Mrs. Grey, and then later we find out that her husband is named Christian Grey, and then she's like read the books out loud to him because he thought it was funny that it was like the same name.
I love that.
Yeah. His house is like, I don't know, the way it's described kind of just like reminds me of like going to the Met after business hours, like in the Mixed Up Files with Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler. Like, I don't know, he's like a library with like ladders on wheels and like the British housekeeper and just like cool shit. Like it's great. A virtual
fucking library with like,
yeah, definitely. I don't think it'd be that much to achieve.
Like zoom around.
And he has like a virtual butler, which is like Siri, but like for some reason it's played off as like better than Siri. It is like an AI. Rebecca renames him to Bingley, and like they're like, incorporate the sentence structure of Pride and Prejudice, or like of Jane Austen.
Yeah, so he's just like talking like a 19th century British dandy for the rest of the book.
Yeah.
when she meets the housekeeper is like, "Oh, like, Becca, how's your head?" And Becca's like, "How does she know about my head?" And I was like, "Because her and Nate have like late night gossip sessions about
Oh,
you.
for
Like, what the fuck are
sure.
you talking about?" Like, they definitely stay up like with like I'm imagining what a girl wants type scenario where like Amanda Bynes and Colin Firth are in the kitchen eating Cocoa Puffs, and like that's what I'm imagining Nate and his housekeeper doing, just like
Oh,
every
for
night.
sure. And Nate was definitely like, "Oh my God, like I don't know what to do. Like, do I spend $50,000 on like a personal maid for her? Do I like buy a wing of a hospital just in case she needs it?" And Mrs. Gray was like, "Why don't we start with flowers? Why don't you just break the ice? Just go in, be cool for like 2 seconds. Go over
And he's
there and
like,
we'll see how it
"Flowers?"
goes."
He's like, "You mean a 20-pound bouquet of roses?
And she's like,
That's what
"All
you mean
right.
by
All
flowers?"
right. It's better
She's
than the
like,
wing."
"Oh, you know what? Like, fine, whatever." And she's this whole time like Becca's like, I can't stay in Nate's mansion for a week. There's no way I'm gonna stay in Nate's mansion for the week. And I'm like, again, why the fuck not?
Yeah.
Why the fuck? You've known him. I get that he's her boss, but like she's like friends with him. Like it's
Yeah.
multiple times
And
stated
he's
that
not
they're
even gonna
like
be there. Like
friends outside of. Yeah, he's like flying around the country, wasting jet fuel.
he's like explicitly going to DC like in a day for the rest of the week, probably to like bribe some senators or whatever. Like, so we find out we like get another flashback after Nate has like walked in on his fiance sleeping with Bart or whatever. This is like another indication of like they're friends. Like Rebecca like cancels her plans and like stays late to like buy him empanadas and tequila, which is like sounds fucking delicious. Like empanadas are so fucking good. Like I don't even eat meat anymore, but like, well, you can get them without meat, but like beef
I
empanada,
know.
just excellent.
I listen, I respect and support you. But I disagree.
Why?
I just like the only empanadas I've had have been like too I don't know if dry is the right word.
Dry. I mean, yeah, dry would be bad, but
I mean, I just don't, and I'm talking about like so the primary time I've had empanadas was when you know how like when you're in college and people go around and they're like, "There's free food in room 425," you know what I mean? And I was like, "Oh my god, there's free food in room 425," and it turned out to be a meeting of like it was like the Latin Heritage like club or whatever, and like I came in to get empanadas and I thought I could just like leave because I didn't realize it was like the club meeting, and then like they started the club meeting and I was like, okay, so now I'm gonna sit through the club meeting of the Latin Heritage Club. I support it.
and you're telling me those were bad empanadas?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying I don't like empanada. Like I
Oh,
didn't like those empanadas, and they were from like the people the people like the people that I knew in the club were like, yeah, like this is my favorite empanada spot.
oh, because my experience was like almost the exact same. It was like in the college like student center, and it was the multicultural fraternity. And I think someone's mom had like made them or something. They were fucking delicious. It's like the best. I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
Very good hand food.
I think that they're just not for me, and
Yeah.
that's okay.
And then Nate is like ruminating about how like after Juliet left him, like, he just had like a string of one night stands, but it's getting like harder and harder because everyone just wants to be with him for his money. And like anyone I fuck would have to sign an NDA, and not because of sexual proclivities. And I'm like, all right, another 50 Shades of Grey joke. I see that.
But I'm like, why not, Nate? Why can't you get a little dirty? I mean,
Yeah.
later on, when him and Becca are having sex, like apparently Bing Lee, the personal assistant, sends recordings to the like research and
Oh my
development team because they're
God.
still developing it. And the research and development team gets a recording of like them having
Horrible.
sex, and he's like, okay, so now I'm gonna change the setting so it doesn't automatically send the recording.
Oh my God. It's just like, and Rebecca never finds out about that. Like, thank God. But it's just like,
God, yeah, I was like, "Oh my god." You know what? Like, I think that's one of those situations like, yeah, good idea to just never tell her, like, that happened.
and they're like going to sleep, and Bingley's like, "Good night, sweet prince." And Nate's like, "That's a little dark, like home or Hamlet or whatever." And then Bingley's like, "Sorry, sir. Sleep with the angels." Which Bingley's funny. Like there's some like funny moment. I
I
don't know.
like
It's
Bingley,
funny.
yeah. It's funny. It still kinda creeps me out, like, I think I would be very creeped out to have that AI in my home, especially
Maybe.
because his original name is Hal, like,
Oh
from Space
yeah. Yeah, I
Odyssey.
fucking hate that
I'm
movie.
like,
Yeah.
"Ugh, I don't know."
Horrible. Saw that movie at the age of like 6, and it's like scarred me for life. It's
It's
like
just
almost
terrible.
not
"Open the
as bad as
door,
the little
Hal."
vampire, but
Oh my
so the
god.
next day Nate's like, "Oh, I updated your phone for you, Rebecca. There should be like a new audiobook app on there for you. And I'm like, how did you fucking have access to her phone? But later on, we find out. So his whole thing is tech firm is like phones. Like he's like, it's said multiple times, like he's like reinvented the way you use your phone, like blah, blah, blah. So all the employees have like K-Tech phones. And there's a tracking device on each of them because he's like, oh, maybe I should track her, but I have a company policy not to like track my employees unless it's an emergency. I'm like, they're fucking tech company employees. Like, what? It's not like they're a private security firm. Like, what emergency could there be that you would be responsible for finding them instead of the police?
If the phone gets lost.
Why? No,
he says like a company phone having like a locator.
I know, but then like it should be like something that the employee has to type in something to allow you. Like, you shouldn't just have tracking devices on your employees' phone. And that seems to be like her personal phone.
And it's very casually.
It's just it's so casual, and the fact that he can just like update her phone for her without her like knowledge, like what? It's like she doesn't even have like a personal separate phone. Like whatever. He's put audiobooks on there. He gave her Outlander and Pride and Prejudice.
I think it's hilarious that he gives her Outlander.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, it's over 40 hours total. But I'm like, all right, that's because Outlander is 32 hours long. Like Pride and Prejudice is 11.5.
Listen to that shit at 2 times speed.
Right, exactly. At 1 time speed, like lame.
I was listening to another podcast this morning, and obviously I was listening to it at 2 times speed because like,
yeah,
I have to. And they were talking about like, one of the hosts was like, oh yeah, like my friend sent me like a screen recording of a podcast like she was listening to. And I was like, why is it so fast? And then I realized she was listening at 2 times speed. And they were like, haha, we probably sound like chipmunks. And I'm like, no, you don't. But you know, I encourage you to try 2 times speed because it's really fucking life-changing to be able to finish things in half the time.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. Like I actually like I never even thought of this before, but I saw something somewhat recently that was like an audiobook narrator talking about how they used to like not want people to listen to their stuff on 2 times speed because they're like, you know, I'm an actor, so I like put in like with the pauses where I want them and like I don't want that to be lost. And like it's not lost. Like it's just like faster. Like it's not like the timing remains proportionately the same. The pitch doesn't go up or anything. Like it's fine. It's fine. And it makes everybody, it benefits everybody, hurts nobody. Like we're good here. But what I was going to say is that, so I was like, when I was looking up how long Pride and Prejudice and Outlander are, I looked it up on the library app. And as you would expect, there's probably like 5 or 6 different audiobook versions of Pride and Prejudice on there. But they're all around the same time. They're all around like hovering around 11 and a half hours, which is very impressive. Like, I don't know why is there like some sort of like set metronome that like audiobook readers read to? You know what I mean? Like,
no,
how would they all come out?
It's around 2 minutes, like 1.5 to 2 minutes per page.
But like they all are able to do that. I just feel like it's impressive. I don't know.
I mean, I don't think so. I think if you were to read a page, like as long as you're not like reading it fast, if you were to like read like and making sure you're like enunciating and, you know, being clear.
Mm-hmm.
So Becca has to go to ear therapy. She goes to her appointment. She has somehow the juices in her ear have been messed up and are giving her vertigo. So she has to go to ear therapy where she again essentially gets like spun around in a spinny chair for like an hour until she can like learn how to stand up without falling over. She still has a head injury.
Meanwhile, Nate is like ruminating. He's like, so after, you know, he's like, oh, like the one night stands sort of like lost their verb for me. Right around the same time, he began to find himself meditating on the shape of Becca's curves, which is very much like I've been meditating on the very great pleasure which a pair of fine eyes in the face of a pretty woman can bestow, like Mr. Darcy. And he's like, he's like, I love being near her. A well-timed breath could summon her lilac scent, sending it deep into his lonely chest.
Wow. He's such a nerd. He really is like in some ways, like in terms of like Darcy being the biggest dweeb on the planet.
Yeah.
Like Nate is, you know, a Darcy, like that version of Darcy.
Yeah.
I can see it.
So before the appointment, he's like on his way to meet her after the appointment and find out the news. And Lauren, his assistant, is with him. And this is when she's like, hey, Nate, I really like that speech you gave the players last time. Like, you know, why not me? Why not now? You know? And he's like, I don't know what you mean. And she's like, have a good time with Rebecca. Like, give Rebecca my love.
She's like, do you go to all your employees' doctor's appointments?
And he's like, of course not. That would be silly. And she's like, okay. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. File that away for later. You know, think about it on one of your many private jet plane rides. But yeah, after the appointment, they go walk across the Brooklyn Bridge, which like it's always portrayed as something that's really nice. But the Brooklyn Bridge is, any bridge, like big bridge like that, it's so fucking windy. Like no matter what kind of day you go it on, it's just miserable. I don't understand why people like walking across it. Like I've been on the Brooklyn Bridge several times at several different times of day in several different types of weather, and it's always just not been a very fun experience. But as they're walking across, he holds her hand because it's crowded, and he, 50 Shades of Grey reference, doesn't want her to get hit by a cyclist.
I know. I was expecting her at any moment. Like that would have been so easy to achieve. All she has to do is like, take one of her many spins, like tumble.
Step into the bike path.
Yeah. So he's like thinking about, he has to go to this like charity benefit in Florida. And his good friend from college, Alex, who was a woman, he's like, they have some kind of
Who's
like
also
weird
like a
business
badass
deal. Yeah.
businesswoman,
They have some kind of like business deal and like bidding and I don't know, just like bidding nonsense. And he's like, I know she's going to try to like corner me and like shake me down. So I don't want to give her the chance like at the charity benefit. And Lauren's like, why don't you bring a date? Maybe Rebecca. And he's like, and he pitches it to Rebecca. He's like, yeah, you wouldn't be to work, like just come like, to get away because I know you've been like cooped up.
So she goes to do the benefit and they get to the hotel, and once again she's like, oh no, he's paid for my hotel room. I can't accept this level of generosity. And I am banging my head against the fucking table.
Yeah.
Like I just want to throw myself off a cliff. And this was also the point where I was like, where's Lauren's book? And then I discovered that Lauren in fact does have a book, because there's this whole like subplot in which she's like has like a I don't know what word I'm looking for, a messy relationship with
that's
the
why she like
player
hates the hockey,
with like with like the goalie who she used to date. So Lauren does get a book, which is good.
So they're chatting with Alex, and Alex is like pissed. Like she's like really bad that Rebecca's there because she had asked Nate if she could talk to him like specifically before the benefit, like by themselves. She wanted a private conversation, and Rebecca's here. And she's like really rude to Rebecca. Like she's like, oh, you're the secretary, right? Like, oh, didn't you get like demoted 2 years ago? Like blah, blah, blah. And Nate's like, I can't imagine why Alex is mad. Like, why is she so mad? He's like, we've known each other for 12 years, and we did sleep together for the first time ever, like 4 months ago. But I can't imagine, I haven't talked since, but I can't imagine why she's mad. Like,
he's so dumb.
And that's not the reason she's mad. Like, she's not actually like the spurned woman or whatever, but like, that would have been an obvious reason and totally reasonable reason. Like, if she wanted to like debrief on that and he like brought a third person, like what?
Yeah, because he thought she wanted to discuss business and he didn't want to. Yeah.
Right.
Whatever. But yeah, Nate wanders off somewhere, and Alex like Lauren gets to matchmaking by being like, Becca, you should ask Nate why he sent you to Brooklyn. And at this point I'm like, Nate and Becca are just so inept in love that, like there is no way they would have gotten together if these multiple far more competent women hadn't been like pushing them together. This book doesn't happen if you don't have like Lauren and Alex and like Georgia and like Heidi Jo, like this group of like, I just would like a spin-off matchmaking series in which there's a group of competent women like team up like, so, I don't know, solve crimes and like fall in love.
Yeah. So this is when Rebecca decides to try her hand at the liquor despite having a head injury. She has half a glass of champagne, and she's like falling over within seconds. And so like Georgia, her best friend who like also works at the company, has to like trundle her off to bed. And she's like, we find out that she like always wears lingerie, like no matter what, for some reason. That seems wildly uncomfortable, but like whatever, you do you, girl.
Well, she's wearing those like, like silk, like essentially like camis, you know what I'm talking about? Like it's not like she's wearing like corsets and like garters to bed.
Yeah. And she's in the middle of like a detailed dream about shopping at Bloomingdale's. She's like, oh, there's so many cashmere scarves. Like, this is like the best day of my life.
There's cashmere sweaters. No, cardigans. I'm sorry. Cashmere cardigans, because I had a point to make about this. Okay, so I don't know that we've gotten this yet, but in the second half of the book, we get many, many references to the fact that Becca has really big boobs.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just thinking I'm like, any woman that has large breasts knows that you can, like a cashmere cardigan. And what I'm picturing is like one of those fitted like buttons all the way down the front, like that kind of cardigan. Cannot wear those if you have boobs. And it's implied that like later on she wears just a cashmere cardigan as a shirt. So like it's not like she's wearing anything underneath, it's not like she's just wearing a cardigan over a shirt. And I'm like, if you have more than like a B cup, you cannot wear those. Whatever.
Yeah, but she's in the middle. Let's like, yeah, setting that aside. Like she has a shopping dream and she's rudely awoken in the middle of it by Nate. He's managed to get her key card from like Georgia or someone or like Lauren or and like scam his way into her literal hotel room and wake her up. And she's like, oh my God, like he's going to see my boobs. But if you sneak up on a sleeping girl, you're going to see her jammies. Like, all right. Like,
thank you.
Weird way to put it, but like, all right. And then they're like talking. They're like, she's like, oh, this is like weirdly intimate. It feels as if we're the only people awake in all of Florida. Like it's just us.
In all of the magical kingdom of Florida. It's Disney World. Oh, it's Disney World. That's what it is. The whole metaphor.
Yeah, wow. I love that.
Oh my gosh, it's all coming together. She finally fucking after 2 years asks him why he transferred her. And he, in his head, because this is from his perspective, he's like, oh my God, I can't believe she's been wondering about this. It did not even occur to me once that she may wonder why I like moved her from a position she had been in for 5 years and was really good at, like without talking to her for, like.
Yeah.
But,
he's like, how bizarre.
Sir, you are a dunce. Like Nate is just wearing a dunce cap this whole
I guess
time.
I was saying earlier that like he just says he's bad at social cues but doesn't like say it. I guess like this is an example and like him being like, I can't imagine why Alex is mad. Like,
yeah.
But see, the thing with all of that is they seem like social cues that it just seems really convenient for him to pretend like he didn't pick up on. You know what I mean? It's not like an all-encompassing thing where it's like, I don't know how to describe it.
It seems like that he's not. It's not that he's not capable of picking up on social cues. It's that he lacks emotional intelligence.
Right. Exactly. Because like picking up on social cues is like, oh, someone wants to leave the dinner and you don't realize that like, they're trying to like hint at it. But we never get any of that. It's all things that like it would just be convenient for him to pretend like other people don't have emotion, like don't have feelings. So he's finally like, I don't really want to give you an answer on that. And she's like, well, maybe you owe me one. And he's like, it's because you had remember that boyfriend you had that like would come into the office? Yeah, I couldn't watch that. And she's like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, like couldn't watch that. I just like, because I like am in love with you. Like he doesn't say it like that, but
and then they make out. They have some sexy times. There are just 2 quotes at the beginning of this that I would like to emphasize. First, when they kiss, she's like, I now know exactly how Nate's mouth feels against mine. It feels awesome. I was just like, yeah, like it's the Taylor Swift, like the beginning of me, like, hey kids, spelling is fun. Like that's it. And then also like after they like break apart momentarily and Nate tilts his head to the side like a Labrador retriever. So we have Nate is a golden retriever confirmed.
Yep.
Just wanted to emphasize that.
Yep. He's like compared to a puppy multiple times. And we skipped over, but like earlier, Lauren, he was like, it feels like Lauren's playing with me like a cat and a mouse. Like, so we got cat references.
Lauren's
too.
definitely a cat.
Yeah. And so, okay, so they like have sex. Classic orgasm after just like a few seconds of P&B, like, no discussion of contraception before. Yeah, mutual orgasms. And like afterwards, he's like, oh, I know you're on the pill. Like I saw it on the counter. I'd never endanger you. And I'm like, all right, well, like she could still get chlamydia. We've been through this, but like
whatever. Maybe he gets tested like on the monthly and like it's never mentioned because it's not important to the story for whatever.
It just seems like,
I do really wait. I really appreciate. So it is a common romance trope where heroes are just popping heroines' boobs out of their bras / corsets, which is always described as if it like it described in a way that implies that the bra / corset essentially like disappears once the boob is popped out. Just like in the way I'm like, it's just way more difficult than it's always portrayed. And I appreciate that the book specifically is like, oh, he pulls my boob out of my whatever it's called, my like negligee, negligee, and he's like it's like he can do that because I'm wearing a negligee and not a bra. So I was like, plus 10 points to Sarina Bowen for like calling that shit out and acknowledging that that's not a thing.
Yeah. They do eventually get completely naked because we know that when they wake up, she's like, until you wake up naked with your boss of 7 years, you haven't lived.
Oh my God. She also compares his dick to the last frontier.
What?
She's like right before he like puts it in, she's like, oh, it's the last frontier.
I feel like that's another Disney World reference somehow. Like
dun 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, so he sends her home. He's like, we don't have to talk about this now. And he says,
No.
and I quote,
No.
I want you to go home and brood.
No, he says, let's get breakfast and talk about it. And she's like,
Oh, yeah.
no, I have to go home. I feel like he says, I don't want you to go home and brood.
No, he says, okay, so what, he like invites her to breakfast. She's like, I can't, I'm getting breakfast with Georgia. And then he like puts her in the car and like gives her a kiss on the cheek. And he's like, I want you to go home and brood. Like, think this through. I wrote down this quote because I was like, I love it. I love the like brooding.
He's worried that she's going to brood. And she does. She goes home and she like starts like, stress cleaning. And she's like, oh my God. There's a brand new soundtrack running through my brain. Holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. She's like, my whole life, like people have been telling me I have a good head on my shoulders, but now I've like done this crazy thing. And like, she really is just like a consistently like stodgy person. Like that definitely is. That's very much like, as much as we're told but not shown that like Nate is bad at social cues, we are told and shown that Rebecca is like, parentified, but also just like, boring. I don't know.
But
like
her sister comes in and is like, what the fuck is going on? Or, like, what is going on? Like, you're stress cleaning. Like, I know that means something's going on. And Rebecca is like, my sister is a few peas short of a casserole. And I know that's an insult. I really have no idea what, like, I don't understand the metaphor, but I kind of love it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand how that relates to being like of low intelligence at all.
She says that about her after. So Rebecca's like, I slept with my boss. And her sister is like, you slept with Hugh Major?
Oh,
really? He's old. And Hugh Major is like the manager of the hockey team.
And that's a constant, like, that joke is made several times. And it is hilarious every fucking time.
Yeah. Like Rennie comes in and he's like, you slept with Hugh Major? Like,
even Nate later is like, you slept with Hugh Major.
Yeah. And like Rebecca's like, it was Nate, and her sister's like, oh, so Nate finally admitted he has a thing for you. And I'm like, who's a few peas short of a casserole now, Rebecca? Like, you're the only one in this like apartment who hasn't figured it out. Like, dude.
Yeah.
So then she gets like 2 pretty stressful letters in the mail. One of them is her rent, and she's like been expecting it to go up, but it's the same as it's been. So file that away. Remember that for later.
Can I just say, at the time I read that and I was like, Nate totally bought the apartment. He had bought the entire apartment building. And I was assuming that he had like just bought it. That he had just bought the apartment building. But no, he had owned it the entire time she's lived there.
Yeah, he just has his like web. Like he has like control over her phone, like her passport, her social security, like everything, like her fucking apartment building.
He definitely knows her social security number. She has to do it for tax reasons. She has to give it to him for tax reasons.
And like the fact that he's like, there's a note on your file that like not to raise the rent, but like everyone else in that building, he owns the whole building. He bought it for his employees. So everyone else is his employee too, but he's just like, what, extorting them? Like, what? That's the thing about all these like nice things that he does for her. I'm like, you could definitely afford to do this for everyone, if not the entire city of New York, like everyone in your organization, like the second letter she gets is from her health insurance. And it turns out that these like special therapy sessions have been like $300 a pop, and she's supposed to go 3 times a week, which is like insanely expensive. And she's like, all right, like I'm, I need to stop going so much because it's just like I can't go into debt for this.
The American healthcare system sucks.
Yep.
And Nate, this is when Nate's about to go home and he's like checking in on, he still thinks she's at his house. He thinks she went back to his house for some reason. But this poor baby is like in the car and finds out she's not at his house from Bingley. And he's like, oh. And then he's like, maybe I should change Bingley's name back to Hal. But I can't because I miss Rebecca too much.
It's like there's only one heat signature in the house. Like it should be 2. And this is when he's like considering like finding her. He's like, every company phone has a tracking device.
So then he's talking to his longtime friend / business partner, Stu. And Stu is the one who is like, you can't continue to pursue her. Like that's major sexual harassment. And I'm like, why does Nate need Stu to tell him this? I feel like this is very obvious.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think this needs to be stated out loud at all. It shouldn't.
It's very annoying that there's Stu and there's also Hugh Major. Like that was very confusing for me.
Yeah, but
like,
he's always Hugh Major. He's always Hugh Major.
Yeah,
he's never
true.
just Hugh.
Yeah, but the first time Stu was introduced, I was like, maybe this is Hugh. So he's like, yeah, you can't fucking do that. And so Nate like is like, I guess like. But first, like, yeah, Stu's like, Nate, you've been down. Like, I'm almost tempted to think you finally bagged Rebecca. I just look at him blandly. People tell me I have a really impassive face. And then Stu's like, you did bag Rebecca. And Nate's like, people also tell me that my passive face thing is broken when it comes to Rebecca. Like, everyone can see that he's like pining.
Everybody knows it. I love it. So he goes looking for Rebecca at her apartment. And instead he talks to her sister and the baby. And he's like looking at the baby and he's like, I wonder what mine and Rebecca's babies would look like. No,
Yeah.
I can't think that way.
For some reason in between here, he's thinking about his like parents. And his dad like says something about like being worried about the jet, like him crashing the jet or something. And he's like, he just will never let go that one thing that happened when I was a teenager and I backed his Oldsmobile into the garage door, causing $1,000 of damage, which is For a few weeks ago, Allison lightly tapped the car, backed it into the garage door. But luckily for her and us, our brother was able to like fix everything and like pop the garage door back on its track, and we like fixed the light on the car and everything. So it was not $1,000 worth of damage. What it was though, while we were fixing the garage door, our brother casually dropped to me that apparently, I think I might have mentioned this before, but garage doors can like kill you really easily if you're like fucking with a spray. Like it can like shoot off and like decapitate you in like seconds. And so there is the high mental cost of the paranoia I now have every time the garage door opens and closes, especially because it makes this like loud like clicking noise every time it opens. So I have to like run and get in the car before it like runs all the way.
Okay. I just would like to provide some clarifying details here. It wasn't as if the garage door was closed and I just like fully backed into it. Like I pressed the garage door opener and I thought that the garage door was all the way open. And so I started backing up, but it wasn't. So it only took off. It only like bumped into like the back top tail light, like on the top of the car. And like, that's the only thing that got broken. And also the garage got put. So like, I just want to like, I don't think it's the same thing as Nate. Like it's implied that Nate just like went fully through the garage door, which is not what I did. Like I'm not that bad of a driver.
Really? You slept with Hugh Major?
After he looks for the apartment, he finds her in his old office and she's stress cleaning that too. And they have a discussion where she's basically like, let's never talk about it again. And he's like, oh, okay, if that's what you want. But she keeps having this internal monologue. And I really don't like this, where she keeps being like, I can't be the girl who casually sleeps with the boss.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I do understand that there is inevitably going to be that dynamic if you're in a relationship with your boss where your coworkers are like, oh, like, isn't that a little, inappropriate or whatever? But I don't know. They're just like, I can't really pinpoint exactly what discomforted me about it, but it just reeked of like some sort of internalized misogyny, like slut shaming that I didn't really like.
And like not like other girlsy too, because she later on to like explain it to Nate, she uses like the example of what if she was dating one of the players and she's like, none of the other players would like take me seriously, obviously. But her best friend Georgia is marrying one of the players like next month. Yeah. And Rebecca like helped plan the wedding. Lauren also like previously dated one of the goalies. So she's like, oh, it's okay for them. But like, I could never like no one would ever respect me. No. Like I could never do that.
And then she's like, also like, I'm not smart/successful enough or like to like be with you. And I'm also not like hot enough to be a trophy wife. And just like in general, I'm like, Becca, this is just... You gotta unlearn all of this, please. Like, this is not a healthy view to take of yourself. I didn't really like it, and the book doesn't interrogate it as much as I would like.
We have like this one conversation with Georgia where Rebecca's like voicing all of this, and Georgia's like, well, have you ever considered that like all of that stuff isn't what Nate like cares, like that's not how he sees it, like he doesn't think of all this stuff as like points in his favor, like points not in your favor or whatever. And Rebecca's like, wait a second, maybe. I don't know,
whatever. She's like in Nate's apartment again. She asked Bingley about the game, and then like Nate sends her a car and he's like, just come watch it, you fucking dumbass, like why aren't you here, like just come. And so she shows up and get another internalized misogyny. I literally put the side-eye emoji next to this in my notes where she's like, I'm wearing Chuck tees, which is better for my balance than girly shoes.
Oh, she's constantly dropping shit like that. Yeah.
Becca, stop it. So she
Yeah.
shows up and we get a paragraph description of the hockey game. And this is where I was like, this might as well be the fucking Charlie Brown parents talking, like, for all I understand it. Because like I was like, I don't know what I know what all of these words mean separately. I do not understand at all what this is talking about. And I will say for this book, because it's not like about one of the players, like there really isn't a lot of like game action description. Like it's mostly just like, and then he scored a goal and then he missed the goal.
We cheered.
But like, yeah, but this is like the most sort of like in depth we get. And I was just like, I don't know what is going on here. I understand that they are pushing the puck around on skates and I don't know anything else. And also like, I think because we haven't, this is like, it's like kind of the first book in like a sub series of like the overall like Brooklyn Bruisers series. Like this is all part of the same universe, but like there's like some Brooklyn Bruisers books before, like with George, like George's book is before this. And so like I guess we would have known the names of the players better if we had read those books, but because I haven't read them, I'm like, I don't know who any of these people are. Like you keep mentioning these people by their last name and like I don't know any of their names.
Yeah, Castro. It's the only one I picked up on because he like makes Nate jealous.
Yeah, she gets to the hockey game and at the sound of my voice, Nate turns slowly in his seat. And I know this is supposed to be like he turns because he's like so drawn to her and he like sees her as soon as she enters the box. But I'm just imagining like a supervillain turning around in a chair like with a cat on his lap. Like, there you are, Rebecca. You've fallen right into my trap. And the fact that he has like an AI who has brought her to the game, I'm like, I don't like these vibes.
His head stool was all the way around on his neck.
Yeah. But yeah, she has the whole conversation with Georgia in the bathroom and the bathroom attendant in the background is like, girl, if you don't marry him, I will. Like, what are you waiting for? Like, what the fuck? And I'm like, yes, exactly. Finally, a reasonable person.
Yeah. So this is where we meet Heidi Jo, the intern. And this is yet another person that Rebecca just like immediately hates. And Heidi Jo is like, you know, Southern and feminine, like peppy. And Rebecca's like, therefore, she must be an idiot. And she's like constantly surprised when Heidi Jo is competent because she's like, oh, she's so friendly and cheerful. She must be a dumbass. And I'm like, all right, that's your internalized misogyny. Like, what? Like, what are you?
She is. I feel like the main thing that annoys Becca about Heidi Jo is the fact that Heidi Jo is like talking all the time. Like she's constantly like talking Becca's ear off. And I can understand being irritated by that. But yeah, like that it's not because it's definitely like internalized misogyny. On the topic of Heidi Jo, I would die for her. I would die for Heidi Jo. From the moment she stepped on the page, I was like, I love this woman so much. She does get her own book. I did confirm and I will be reading it, but I was like, she's incredible. Like I love everything about Heidi Jo. She just doesn't give a fuck. In my head, Heidi is bisexual or it just in some way also likes women despite the fact that her book is with a man because she went to Bryn Mawr and everybody knows that if you go to Bryn Mawr, like
she dropped out of Bryn Mawr though.
Yeah, but she still went to Bryn Mawr, you know, like let's not pretend that Bryn Mawr is not a like primarily sapphic school. Like you may go in straight, but you certainly don't come out. So like in my head, Heidi Jo likes women.
Okay.
They're at the game. They're at one of the playoff games, and they're, oh my god, I don't understand. Like I think this would be something that would be very easy if I just looked it up, but there are like 100 playoff games. Like they're in the playoffs this whole book, and each like team there's like 7 games. I don't understand how many games are they playing. I thought the playoffs were just like one like
no, I don't think it's like a set bracket thing. It must be the kind of thing where it's like it depends how much other teams have like won and lost by like point wise, and like each team still plays a lot of games. You know what I mean? But that would be a good way to like spin out, like have like a lot of games and like raise a lot of revenue and have people like attending. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't.
But
I
was
have no idea.
I was like, we're in the playoff games, and this lasts for the rest of the book. And I was like, why are there so many playoff
They
games?
definitely can like afford to lose like several of them, and they do.
They just like as they're leaving the playoff game, like Heidi Jo slides into the car, and then Becca slides into the car, and somehow she does not realize until the door is shut that she is sitting on Nate's lap. Like I just like don't
feels
understand.
So natural.
She's like, oh, what? Like literally, there's like several seconds have passed. while she's sitting on his lap, and she's like, oh no, and she like jumps off.
She just like assumes it's her vertigo. Like she's just like doesn't have any spatial awareness.
Whatever. Anyway, they finally, after like a lot of weird back and forth in which Nate is ignoring her for some
calling her
reason.
like Miss whatever her last name is.
Yeah, like Robertson,
Yeah.
Rabies. I don't know. Something with an R. She finally agrees to go on a dinner date with him, and they're like canoodling in an office or something, and interrupted by Heidi Jo, which like again, like I would die for Heidi Jo, so like I don't mind this at all.
So they go on their dinner date. It's like nice, and like she's like finally like I don't care, I'm gonna let him pay for the check. Like I'm not even gonna offer.
Yeah,
like, all right,
I was
fine.
like,
finally.
He is a billionaire. Do not split the check with him. That's like, it's like the same thing when people are like, yeah, I'm living with my partner and we split everything 50-50, despite the fact that my partner makes like 5 times more than me. Like it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. If the other person makes significantly more money for you, they should pay proportionally more. Or like proportionally the same. Like you should pay proportionally the same, but that means they pay more. Like it just... If you make significantly, if you and your partner make significantly different salaries, it does not make sense for you to split things 50-50.
Well, I think
That's
it depends on like what standard of living you want. Like I don't know, there could be like different factors, but sure. But if it's a billion, like it's a very clear cut situation here.
Yeah.
Like no,
it's cut and dry.
Yeah. So she finally is like fine with that. And then they like walk back to his place, and they're making out on the steps. When who bursts in from Mesh, his driver, with a gun, and he's like, oh my god, like I saw 2 heat signatures on the stairs, and I thought it was a grapple, like I thought you were being attacked. It wasn't on the bed. He's like,
oh my god, they keep getting interrupted.
And I know it's
very,
so
very funny.
like once again. So they go to the pool. They have like a nice little like
a little hot tub thing. And I'm like, oh, to go to a rich man's underground hot tub in which he gives me a massage. Like that just sounds ideal.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Sounds wonderful. Oh man.
Once again, he's like, should I get a condom while like literally in the middle of sex? Like they're really not clear on the function of condoms.
But 2 things that happen in this scene. One, he like is like, tell me some palindromes. Like I'm trying to get her to dirty talk to him palindrome.
And since she does.
And I love that. I love that the palindrome thing pays off like in that way. Like it's just wonderful. He also eats her out while she's sitting on an inflatable turtle. Yep. And there was just like, I know like it's not a real turtle. Like I understand this is just like an inner tube, like a pool toy. Mm-hmm. But for some reason it felt adjacent to when people have sex in front of their dogs. I was like, there just feels like there's something indecent about fucking in front of this inflatable turtle.
I also just like, I know that the pool was like heated, and I'm sure it's like a heated indoor, like comfortable environment, but I don't know, like it just feels
so hot tub.
I know, but like she has to get out of the hot tub. You know what I mean? Like she's partly out, and I just feel like there's no way I wouldn't be cold. So I don't know. It's just nice in theory, nice to read about. I don't know if it would be a good execution, but whatever.
She also moans, and Bingley is like, "Are you okay?" Yeah, she's like, "Yeah, Bingley, I'm fine."
Also, like, yeah.
And this is when this is the sex that the IT department gets a recording.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, like before this, when you said that Heidi Jo like interrupted them in the office, like he's like, "Oh, I just want to make out with you right now," and she's like, "Down, boy." He pants like a puppy. I'm 2 seconds away from humping your leg, like just a full on dog. So like the next game that they're both traveling to or whatever, like. Is this one? Yeah, Nate's like, "Oh, stay in my suite with me," and Rebecca's like, "No, that wouldn't be appropriate for like a work trip, and like no one knows yet, like it's still a secret."
At this point, also like the only like I care about Nate and Becca, but like they're a foregone conclusion, and the only relationship I really care about is like Becca's slow and grudging like build of affection for Heidi Jo. Like I'm just like, give Heidi Jo the love and respect that she deserves, because Heidi Jo is phenomenal. Also, once again, Becca is drinking, and once again, she's like, oh no, I had half a glass of wine and like I'm immediately drunk. And she's like, oh, it's because I don't have a tolerance anymore. And I'm like, no, it's because you have a head injury, bitch. Like, even me as a 12-year-old didn't get like sloshed off of a glass of wine.
No.
Like, it's not about fucking tolerance. It's about the fact that your inner ear juices are out of whack and you have
don't
vertigo.
lose your tolerance for alcohol over like a month. It's been like 2 months, you know.
Becca, no, stop drinking with a head injury. You're still in physical therapy. Actually, she's not going to physical therapy because she can't afford
it's
it.
too expensive.
In this same thing, they're like sending flirty texts, and this man says "rar," like in all seriousness, in this flirty text exchange. And I was forcibly yanked back into the age of like mustache tattoos and rar means I love you and dinosaur. And I just really like, I was like, this is my middle school days, and this is like the most unsexy thing.
Meanwhile, like Rebecca was earlier dictating a text to Bingley, and Bingley's like, should I add a smiley face emoji? And Rebecca's like, no, because I'm not 12. And I'm like, all right, so you're not like other girls. But like, meanwhile, like Nate is like,
he's sending you fucking rar. Like, oh God. Anyway, he also keeps making like it's like a running joke throughout that like he's like, oh, I have a PowerPoint for like sex positions, and like I have a PowerPoint for like my fantasies with you, and like, and he's like, I also like in like his head, he's like, I have a PowerPoint for like why he needs her. And at this point, I'm like, okay, where's the PowerPoint party? Like, I would like there to be a PowerPoint party. I would like Heidi Joe's PowerPoint just be like why I'm better than all of you, because she is like. I was like, I'm going to need a PowerPoint. Like, this keeps coming up, and I would genuinely like you to make, like, a joke PowerPoint as, like, a romantic gesture.
Yeah.
No PowerPoint comes, unfortunately.
Another thing about Rebecca that we haven't mentioned yet is that she's like, she's like, I'm so into fashion. Like, I'm a fashionista. Like, very much the way that, like, Stephanie Meyer is like, I'm a fashionista. And, like, Alice Cullen is supposed to be a fashionista. Meanwhile, like, the only descriptions of her outfits we get are, like, ugly like purple dresses and like dresses with like ugly eggplant purple belts, and she's like, oh, I'm gonna go shopping for like the perfect cashmere scarf in the perfect eggplant shade of purple. But and I get that it's like the bruisers colors, but like it's just there's just nothing cute in that color, and I just like don't believe that she like
I like purple,
not that color purple, eggplant purple on clothing, like bruise purple, like no. But anyway,
we're picturing different types of purple. Anyway, and then so Nate is on his treadmill desk, and he's like, "Why?" He like finds out. No, he's on his treadmill desk, and he's like, "Why is like Becca been so stressed?" Like, and I think he like found out she hadn't been going to physical therapy, and he's like confused. And then he's on his treadmill desk, and he watches the news. And Nathaniel, I don't know if that's his full name, has to be reminded of how shitty the American healthcare systems are. Like he like does not. He's like, "Oh yeah, healthcare costs money," and he has to be reminded by the fucking news. Doesn't even occur to him for a moment that someone may have trouble with their bills. And so then he calls this doctor office, and in a blatant violation of HIPAA, the doctor's office gives out Rebecca's medical and financial information.
We were doing so well. We were doing so well because with her first appointment with the team doctor, she's in there and he like pops his head in, and the doctor's like, sorry, Nate, like she's not a player. I can't like give you her information. And she's like, it's okay. But like, so we were doing so well. Like HIPAA existed in this universe, and now it's suddenly just like straight out the window. Like,
I guess when you donate $50,000 to the doctor's charity, like HIPAA doesn't matter.
Yeah, like the implication is that like they think they're like they think that Nate and Rebecca are like together because of the big donation. But I don't think that's enough. Like, I don't think outside of like her,
it would only be enough if like on her form,
right?
She was like, this person can have, but like I don't think that was the case. Like we never got. Why are you giving out? So anyway, he pays her bill. And he puts his credit card on file without talking to her.
And he also, because he's not going to the game, so she said no to staying in his suite with him, but he switches
his
their
penthouse.
Rooms. So he gives her the penthouse and he gives himself a normal room because he's just like flying back and forth on the jet and he won't even be there. So Rebecca rolls up to the hotel with Heidi Joe in tow, and on the list, they find out that she's been put in Nate's penthouse, and like Heidi Joe notices first, and Rebecca's like, oh my God, like I can't believe he didn't listen to me. Like, this is terrible. And then at the same time, she gets a notification of a credit to her credit card. Like,
Pay
money back.
bills,
Yeah. And she's like, oh, it was Nate. And she's like freaking out. And she calls him, like yells at him. And she's like, I think she leaves voicemail. She's like, don't talk to me ever again.
She's like, I'm so mad. What the hell? And I understand that she wants to be an independent woman, TM. But again, he is a billionaire. Like, he should have asked first before the medical bill stuff. He should have asked. But
well, the suite, she's pissed about the suite because she doesn't realize that he switched them. He thought that because she still wanted to keep it like on the down low, and she thought that everyone was going to know, and she was like embarrassed that Heidi Joe.
She thinks that like they're going to be staying in the same suite. Yeah. So like she does like realize like, oh, that was an overreaction. But I'm like, no, the medical stuff, like he should have asked. But also like she owed like $1,600, which is like a lot to someone who doesn't.
It was like $3,000 at least.
I mean, whatever. It was like several. It was like, a big chunk of change. It was like
it was gonna be
more than I make in a month.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is a big chunk of change to someone who like has her salary. But to him, nothing. It's like he pulled out his wallet and like threw a couple hundred bills at the table.
All right, so they're in a little tiff, and
she's once again, she's like, oh, it's for the better or whatever. Like, he's better than me. And I'm like, no, he's a thief. Making billions of dollars is theft. You don't become a billionaire without exploitation. So you're not better. Like, he's not better than you, Becca. At least you haven't stolen. At least you're not a thief. Spiritually, he's a thief. Spiritually, billionaires are thieves. They're at the game afterward. At another game. There's so many games. I don't know. I don't understand. And at the press conference. So we got some like foreshadowing earlier when Georgia, who's like the publicist, was like, there's this reporter that really wants to talk to you, Nate. Like, but like she just seems like a gossip columnist. So like I've said no. And then like that reporter like ambushes him later. And basically we find out. So Nate hates the Dallas hockey team. Like that has been established. And we don't really know why. And like now is when we find out why. So it turns out that Bert, Juliet's personal trainer, who she cheated on Nate with, is like the captain of the Dallas team, and like she married him. And so this reporter like makes a whole story of like, oh, Nate only bought this team so that he could like beat Bert, the hockey player, because of his like girlfriend. Like it was just like very big. It's a very big scandal. This like doesn't really have that much bearing on the plot. Like it's just like to find out like why Nate hates Dallas. But I'm glad that we don't get Becca like worrying that he wants to get back with Juliet, right? Because I feel like that could have been really easy to have that be like a conflict. And she like doesn't really care. Like she's still like insecure that she's not good enough for him, but like she's like, I know I'm better than Juliet.
Right. Yeah, it does kind of seem like he's not over Juliet. It's kind of like played off, but like I feel like he definitely still like hates Dallas, and there's no other reason for it besides that. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but that's not why he bought the hockey. He's like yeah, like I wanted to beat Dallas, but like I bought the hockey team because I like hockey, and like
yeah,
I thought I could turn the team around, which like he has.
But he like really hates Dallas. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. But they make out in an office. So I just want to. There's just one line there. They make out in an office, and he slips his fingers under the quote gusset of her panties.
Oh no!
And I looked up what gusset is, and it's just like the elastic in your underwear. Like it's a totally normal thing. But I was just like, what is a gusset, and why does it sound like a gross British food? Like,
yeah, no, that's terrible. Blech. But that's not the worst thing that happens in this makeout session. His tongue plunging into my ear at one point.
No,
just the most horrible. No. And like that does.
He's gonna mess up her ear juices again.
Oh fuck! Oh, it's just the worst. It's like a horrible like wet willy. But yeah, she like goes over to comfort him. She's like, "I'm sorry, I didn't realize that you had switched our rooms." And he's like, "No, I'm sorry. Like I should have asked you first before paying your health bill. Like blah blah blah.
For stealing your medical information and violating HIPAA."
And then he's like, will you come with me like as my actual date to the last game? The next game, which like will be their last game, but they don't know yet. And like sit with me. And he's like, yeah, I will. So everything's good in the kingdom. It's about to get shaken up a little bit.
And then Alex arrives and she's like, Nate, we gotta talk. And it's because I'm pregnant. And it's probably not yours, but it could be yours.
And I kind of hope it is. because the other
the
option,
probable father was my physically abusive ex who only wanted to get to me because he wanted to get to my dad's hedge fund
which
money,
can
or
I
like
just say
VC money or
that
whatever.
it just makes it even more rich that Alex, I know it was like, because, you know, it was in a bad place. She didn't really mean it, but like she was like dunking on Rebecca for like being whatever, like a secretary or whatever. Meanwhile, like Alex definitely got to where she was because her dad is like this huge like venture capitalist, like hedge fund man. It's not like she was like somehow, you know, Nate at least like came, you know, his parents are school teachers. Like he came from the Midwest from like, you know, as bootstrap, you know, like whatever, if you want to
as
call it
bootstrap
that,
as a billionaire
as
can be.
possible. Yeah. So like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, she's like, I don't want, she's like, you know, if it is his, that if it is my abusive ex's, then like, you know, he only wanted to be with me because he wanted to like get my dad's money. And like now he's basically going to get my dad's money anyway because like the baby. But I'm like, I don't, like, again, like it was probably just because like Roe v. Wade is like front of mind right now. But I'm like, or Alex, you could just get an abortion.
She could, but it was set up before. Like Nate was like, yeah, Alex is the kind of person who has like a total like 5-year plan. Like as if you can like, she's like, I need to be married by 33 so I can have my first kid by 35. So she did want to like have a kid at some point.
Yes, but like if it's going to involve you being with your physically, like having to be in constant contact with your physically abusive ex-boyfriend.
How about we just like don't tell him and don't put him on the
He
birth
could probably
certificate.
sue her for paternity.
Maybe. I definitely looked into this the first time I read the book, and there might be a way, but I don't know. Yeah.
Like I feel like you can find out. I feel like you can be like, that baby's mine, and like do a DNA test.
I'm not sure. The DNA test is not always conclude. It's definitely not the
overriding
thing.
I don't know. Like I just feel like you could sue for paternity. Anyway, yeah, I just feel like I'm like, in that case, it's like, you know, like why do you want a baby to have that like contact with that kind of father too? You know, like I don't know. But I'm like, Alex, this is an option. Yeah. It's 2016. You don't even have to worry about Roe v. Wade being overturned yet.
Nate's like a stand-up guy. He's like, yeah, of course. Like, I'll take it. And like, you know, I would want to be involved if it was mine, blah, blah, blah. But he's like, oh, this does kind of like shake things up with Rebecca. And he tells her like almost immediately.
But first they have sex in his office. Like they have like hard, passionate sex on his desk. And this whole time I'm like, I do not care about that. Like it was just like in Eris's guide to Deception and Desire, where they're like having their honeymoon night. Meanwhile, her friend is like still kidnapped. And I'm like, all right, guys, like I don't really care about the sex. Like I hate to say it, but I don't care about the sex right now because like someone's in danger. This whole time I was like, I don't really care about this sex scene. I just want to find out who's the father of Alex's baby.
Does Alex get her own book eventually?
I tried to look this up and I couldn't find her book. So if you know that whether Alex gets her own book,
so she's like almost completely like unnecessary. Like there's no reason for it to have this because it doesn't even, it adds like 5 pages of tension before it's like
it doesn't even add any tension because Nate tells Becca and she's like, oh well, you know, like that sucks for Alex, but like we'll work through it. Like if it's your baby, like what, like you know, she's like totally chill about it. Like there's no like, oh my god, I can't believe. Right. You're going to have a child with another woman, you know? Like
yeah, definitely. But he tells her and she's like, oh my god, you told me you slept with Alex like one time. I assumed it was like in college. And he's like, no, that's what I wanted you to assume. Like I wanted you to assume that. And then she's like, well, at least he didn't lie to me. And I'm like, you know, that's, if you say something in an ambiguous way that you're intending for the other person to misinterpret, it's a little bit of a lie, but
it's a little bit of a it's a
whatever.
It's a deception.
Yeah. And Rebecca's like, she's like, all right, chill with it. And then she's like, you know, I've been like applying to new jobs. I have an interview next week. And Nate's like, no, like you can't leave. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, is Rebecca really going to be the one who has to like find a new job? But don't worry.
Don't worry. Nate is planning everything in the background. And it's a good thing I don't know anything about hockey because this could take place over like 9 months and I wouldn't know. So I have no way to judge how quickly Nate is ready to propose to her.
Right.
Yeah, so then they go to the game and they don't fucking win. Dallas wins the Stanley Cup. I know the Stanley Cup is the thing that hockey people want. Mm-hmm. I know that much. Yeah, they don't win. And I was like, lame. Mm-hmm. Like, why can't they? Whatever. Right. They don't win. And then they run into Juliet and she's like smoking and she looks haggard. And like basically like Bert is like very abusive, like verbally, physically, like bad man. Juliet is not happy at all, despite like Becca like Googled her and she looks like the perfect family, like with her daughter and all of that. And I just like we don't get any resolution to that. Like Juliet, I don't think gets her own book.
No.
And I'm just like, So like what? She gets punished with like
Right.
and I was like, this is like I'm all for like, villainizing the cheating ex, but like this is like disproportionate. I'm like, I don't feel satisfaction in knowing that like she has her relationship with the guy she cheated with is like horrible and abusive. Like that, I just feel pity for her and we never get
Yeah.
resolution for that.
And that's what they both say. But yeah, it seems to just exist to be like, haha, like shouldn't have ditched Nate. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but I'm just
Yeah.
like, no, I
Right.
just feel bad for her. I want her to get her own book where like she divorces him and like, falls in love with a small town man who like raises her
Yeah.
daughter,
It was totally unnecessary too.
yeah, I was
it
like, I don't
didn't-
need to know about what Julia. You can be like, they got married and that's all I need to know. Like, I don't.
Right. It would have been, or even if you just wanted to see them and they just have like a normal conversation and Nate's like, oh, like I've like fully moved past this now. Like
Yeah. Or they just like walk by, like they make eye contact as
Right.
they're walking by with their respective partners and they just like do a little nod. And
Right.
then they keep walking.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't need Juliet to be punished. It's been 7 years or it's been like
Right.
5 years. I'm like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Like, not this way. She doesn't need to be punished this way. Like, I already know
Right.
that she didn't win because Nate is a fucking billionaire and she could have been married to a billionaire.
Right. Yeah. Like that was
that's
enough.
punishment
Yeah.
enough for
Right.
Juliet.
Right.
But no.
But moving on from that downer, Nate is gonna. It feels so random. It's out of nowhere, but like he proposes.
But I'm okay with it, A, because again, I don't know anything about hockey, and B, because I was like, they've known each other for 7 years.
No, I'm not even saying like the timing and the grand scheme of things. I'm just saying like the scene in which it happens feels very random. Like they're just having like a conversation.
In a hot tub.
Yeah, and then he's like,
But
"Oh,
no
here's
inflatable
a ring."
turtle this time,
Sadly. And then she's like, "Oh, I don't want to get the ring wet," and he's like, "It's okay. Like you can get it wet. Also, it's insured." Like, why would a billionaire ever insure anything? Much less jewelry. Like what? Like why would you ever insure something that you can replace at the drop of a hat?
But maybe it's like like I think I think the way it's described is like it's like an antique.
That doesn't matter.
Something.
How much could it possibly cost? That doesn't make sense.
I'm just thinking about like, well, first of all, if it's an antique, like it's not as easily replaceable.
Okay, insuring it is not going to get you the exact thing back if you lose it. That it's not relevant. All I can get you is the money.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
They'll be
It's
more
not
likely
like-
to search for it.
No.
I don't
Be
know.
less likely to search for it.
I'm
Yeah,
just thinking of like celebrities at the Met Gala, how like sometimes they'll get loaned out like really like Cartier will like give them like a historic like beautiful necklace that's worth like $40 million, and like I can understand.
that ring was not worth $40 million.
I don't know. Whatever. He proposes in a hot tub and then he gives her the hockey team. He's like, I'm giving it to you as a wedding present. So I'm not your boss anymore. Yay.
Yep. No, it's awesome. I love that. It's very much like Rebecca and Ted Lasso, but like without the asshole husband. Like,
yeah,
she's Rebecca.
Yep.
They're both Rebecca.
Oh my God. I was at the beginning because I started reading this right after we finished Ted Lasso. I was like, she's Rebecca, but he's not Sam.
No.
Sad.
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 He's also like, will you move in with me right away? And she's like, as usual, I begin by assuming I should have an objection. But like, actually, this is fine. This is chill.
Just let him give you everything. The epilogue, it's like a news article, and it's essentially that like she gave birth on the night of like that they won their first Stanley Cup, and like they had the game on in the delivery room, and I just like it's cute, but I'm like, how does this random reporter know so much about her birth timeline? I guess like because HIPAA doesn't exist, so like some nurse probably spilled the beans. Like,
yeah,
why? Like, how do they know? They're like, yeah, she pushed, like she did the game, and she was like there for like 4 hours, and then the baby was born 2 hours of pushing later, and like, I'm like, yeah, but why do you know that?
Yeah,
sir?
I'm gonna be honest. This epilogue was like the worst offender for just like random hockey shit that just like went by at like a blur in my brain. Like I did not get any of those details.
I got that they won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, and that like it was not the most
understood.
unusual thing on that birth ward.
Anyway, HIPAA doesn't exist. That's important. Heidi Jo
It did for one shining moment.
The true heroine of this book.
Mm-hmm.
Lauren is also great. See, if Heidi Jo were bisexual, then Lauren and Heidi Jo could get together, but instead they both marry hockey players. So anyway, Catskill?
Catskill, pretty high. Like neither of the main characters. I don't know what Rebecca is. She's like a fucking like, what's an animal that's like full of itself and like looks down on other animals, but is like incompetent. Like
I feel like she's a toddler because she's like brimming. She's both like incompetent, but like brimming with this like reckless, like she needs to be on a child leash. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like to stop her from drinking with a head injury and all
Yeah.
that. Like at all times.
Like bumping into shit. Like,
Yeah.
God, yeah, she's like the kid that's just like, yeah, just like no thoughts, just vibes, like ordering everyone around, but like would order them off a cliff if like given her way. Like,
Yeah.
obviously Lauren is a cat, Nate is a dog. I feel like Rennie and Missy are like dogs also. Like,
I don't know about that. They're like the like snappy like sidekicks. Like I'm trying to think of like what animal sidekicks. I feel like in some like they're rat. Oh wait, no, Remy's the rat.
yeah.
They're the rats from Ratatouille. They're the rats from Ratatouille. That's what it is.
There's just like a lot of sidekick like kick characters in this book, like too many.
I think because
more than
we get a
needed,
lot.
I think
it's because she's doing a
setup.
lot of cameos, like a lot of setup, but also a lot of cameos from like previous couples. What do we think Hugh Majors is? Despite the fact that we like never meet him,
we never see him.
He's only mentioned.
I just picture he's like a fucking
vibes.
like,
What do you think Hugh Majors is?
some kind of like large, fat, like wise.
Panda?
Yeah.
I also get like I can't
a
explain
cat.
this. I also get like raccoon vibes from Hugh
Yeah,
Majors.
I could see that. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I'm picturing like some character from the Aristocats, but like I don't know who.
Possibly like a Kung Fu Panda character. Like the turtle.
The turtle. Yeah, the turtle.
The turtle from Kung Fu
Totally the
Panda.
turtle. Yeah. Stu. I don't know what Stu is. Stu's just like an owl or something.
He's just a guy on the side.
He's like the wise, like, stop your shit, Nate. Like, I don't know.
Hey, Nate, that's sexual harassment. I don't know.
That's sexual harassment. Also, like, how about we decide on a salary for your new employee? Like,
yeah, Lauren and Heidi Jo are cats.
Heidi Jo, I don't know if Heidi Jo's a cat.
Heidi Jo is like,
well,
a
Rebecca's
tiger.
Constantly comparing her to a puppy, but I don't trust Rebecca's like lens on that at all. Like,
no,
whatever Rebecca, like her judgments on people are, I feel like I should have the exact opposite, honestly. Like, she's just a terrible judge of like everything. Alex feels cat-like. Definitely, 100%.
Yeah.
She's
all
like the opposite of Nate's dog. Yeah,
the competent women in Nate's life that like get him and Becca together. Somehow the housekeeper is also a cat.
Oh yeah, Mrs. Gray. Can't forget about her.
She's also a cat. I feel like
house
vibes.
Cat. Nate's parents, who like continue to work as public school teachers.
I feel like they're dogs. I feel like that's the same thing. Like one time I saw a post where someone was like, "Yeah, I went to my dentist and I was talking about how I was like going to see the new Captain America movie, and he was like, "Oh, my son's in that." And then she was like, "And then I realized his name was Dr. Evans." And his son was Chris Evans, and she's like, she posted a picture of her with a dentist, and then like Chris Evans with his dad, and it was like the same man.
Oh my god!
She's like, Chris Evans' dad is my dentist.
Oh my god!
So it's like the same like celebrity parents,
insanity,
just, like, keeping their like random like their regular jobs,
and to the point where like the dad won't even stay overnight like for the game. He's like, no, I have to be back in time for my like school meeting that can't be rescheduled. But even though he's the principal, so he definitely could reschedule it. Like, to the point of like where he won't miss like a single day. Like that's just ridiculous. I just don't understand people like that
with insane work ethics.
For no
like, it's
reason.
not even work ethic.
It's not work ethic.
It's unreasonable commitment to a job
that will never give that back to you.
Yeah. Anyway,
don't be like Rebecca and Nate, the parents.
Oh my god.
Be like Rennie leaving the oil rig.
Yeah, for his family,
for his baby. Rebecca's judging him for it. Like,
how could he want to spend time with his newborn child?
Yeah. So the 21-year-old fool cried. Okay.
All right.
3,
2,
1, 6.
Where can they find us?
Where can they find us?
No, I did it first. I did it first.
I did it
first. It's your turn.
I don't know what to say. It's too ambiguous.
Where can
too all over the place.
us?
You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, at We Read It One Night. You can find us on Twitter at We Read It Podcast. You can shoot us an email, wereaditonenight@gmail.com. You can also find us on the YouTube at We Read It One Night. Am I missing anything else?
Sadly, no.
Wait, didn't we make something recently? Ooh, that's exciting.
Oh, yeah, we should say that.
Yeah.
Because it's going to come out That's kind of what
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So we have merch.
Woo!
We have t-shirts and stickers and mugs and various designs and colors and sizes and types. So head on over there and support the pod and show off some pretty cool swag. I mean, I will be buying some shit because some of that, it looks really cool to me.
Where can they
personally.
find the link,
I am not in
Allison?
any way biased because I designed them. Definitely not. You can find the link below in the description, and it's on Redbubble.
Will it also be linked in our Instagram?
It will. It'll be linked. I mean, it'll be linked in the bio of all of our social media, everywhere. Anyway, yeah. And then send us
Awesome.
Woohoo,
Woohoo, yeah, we love that.
If you don't want to be like wearing it, that's fine. You can just like send a picture of like it on your bed.
Or like post it on your Instagram and tag us or something. We love that. We definitely repost it 100%.
Yeah. Super exciting.
Awesome.
All right.
Godspeed, comrades.